When I saw her standing at the end of the aisle in a white lace dress, holding my mother's hand, I forgot how to breathe. Her eyes, the same soft brown eyes that once sparkled beside me at sleepovers, that once blinked through mascara tears when boys broke our hearts, were now looking at my mother with a tenderness that didn't belong to her. My best friend, Ava, was about to become my stepmother. And all I could think was, how did we get here? The church smelled faintly of lilies and furniture polish. My palms were damp against the hem of my dress, the one my mother had picked for me, something appropriate, she'd said, for the occasion. My brother, Nathan, stood beside me, his jaw tight, pretending to focus on the stained glass window instead of what was unfolding at the altar. My mother, Ellen, looked radiant. After years of widowhood, she had found someone again. Harold, Ava's father. I wanted to be happy for her, I really did. She deserved love. But every time Ava smiled at me from across the church that day, I felt something cold twist inside my chest, something I didn't yet have words for. I clapped when they kissed, I smiled when the crowd cheered, and I told myself this was fine. But deep down, I knew something had broken, quietly, like a hairline crack in glass, something that would one day shatter completely. Before all of that, Ava and I had been inseparable. We met in third grade, two awkward girls with mismatched socks and wild imaginations. We'd built blanket forts in my living room, shared secrets under flashlights, promised to be each other's maids of honor someday. Even as we grew up and life pulled us in different directions, her with her artistic chaos, me with my steady plans, we stayed tethered. I trusted her more than anyone. When my father died suddenly when I was 21, she was the one who held me while I sobbed into her shirt. She never left my side. And then, a few years later, when my mother started volunteering at the community library, she met Harold, Ava's dad. They hit it off immediately. I remember laughing when Mom told me, "What are the odds?" I'd said. Ava and I thought it was a little weird at first, our parents dating, but we joked about it. "Guess we'll be sisters soon," she'd laughed, clinking her wine glass against mine. But the joke became real faster than either of us expected. 6 months later, they announced their engagement. My mother was glowing. Ava pretended to be thrilled, and I smiled like a dutiful daughter should. It wasn't until after they moved into the old house on Ridgeway Lane, the one with the ivy climbing up the porch railings and the creaky floorboards that smelled faintly of rain, that I began to feel the shift. Ava wasn't just my best friend anymore. She was family now. And something about that changed everything. She started calling my mother Mom, casually, like she'd earned it. She'd borrow things from her closet, give her unsolicited advice on redecorating the living room, even decide what meals they'd have when I came over. I told myself it didn't matter, that this was just adjustment, that families took time to blend. Back then, I was married to Daniel. We'd been together 5 years, and though marriage had settled into routine, the morning coffee, the sound of his car leaving for work, the small goodnight kiss before sleep, I thought we were solid. Daniel had been at our wedding. She'd cried during her speech, saying I was the sister she'd never had. But slowly, in small ways, that closeness began to feel invasive. She'd drop by our house just to check in. She'd bring wine, stories, sometimes even stay late when Daniel worked from home. She'd text him jokes. "Tell your wife I'm stealing her recipes." Or, "Don't work too hard, Mr. Perfect." It was playful, harmless, or so I told myself. Until one day, it didn't feel that way anymore. It started with a smell. Lavender and smoke. I was doing laundry one Sunday when I found one of Daniel's shirts, a pale blue button-up he usually saved for client meetings. It smelled faintly like the perfume Ava used. She always wore it, something flowery with a sharp undertone that lingered in rooms long after she left. I brushed it off at first. They had both been at my mother's house the previous week for a family dinner. Maybe she hugged him. Maybe it was nothing. But then there were the phone calls. Daniel had started stepping outside to take them, lowering his voice as if not to wake me. When I asked who it was, he said it was work. Then there was the art gallery event. Ava had invited me, said she wanted me to see her new collection. She was always painting now ever since she'd retired from her short-lived career in marketing. I went, proud, supportive, only to find Daniel already there, laughing with her by the champagne table. When she saw me, she froze, just for a second before her face lit up into that perfect, too wide smile. "You made it," she said, hugging me tightly. Daniel kissed my cheek. "Ran into Ava on my way here," he said casually. But something in the air between them felt practiced, a familiarity I couldn't explain. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was reading too much into it because of how strange everything felt since Ava had become part of the family. Still, that night, lying awake beside Daniel, I couldn't shake the image of the way she touched his arm, just lightly, like it was nothing, but like she'd done it before. And maybe she had. A week later, I was at my mother's house for brunch. The smell of coffee and warm cinnamon rolls filled the air. My mother hummed as she set the table, wearing the apron Ava had bought her for her birthday. "Have you seen Ava this morning?" I asked casually. Mom shook her head. She said she had an early meeting. "Why?" "Oh, nothing," I lied, though I noticed her car wasn't in the driveway when I pulled in. Half an hour later, she walked in, flushed, hair slightly disheveled, wearing sunglasses indoors. "Sorry I'm late," she chirped. "Traffic was insane." But when she hugged me, I caught a faint whiff of Daniel's cologne, the same one he'd worn to the gallery. The same one that lingered on her scarf weeks later when she accidentally left it on our couch. I don't remember exactly when suspicion turned into certainty. Only that once it did, everything I'd believed about my life started to dissolve. It began one ordinary Wednesday afternoon. I'd just finished grocery shopping, my hands raw from carrying bags, when I realized I'd forgotten my wallet. Daniel always kept a spare in the glove compartment, so I opened it to grab his emergency card. That's when I saw it. A crumpled receipt tucked behind his insurance papers. It was from La Maribel, the French bistro downtown where we used to go on anniversaries, but the date on it wasn't our anniversary. It was the previous Saturday. 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, 1 dessert. And the signature? Ava's. My heart stopped. I sat in the car, staring at it until the world around me blurred, my ears filled with a low, dull ringing, the kind that drowns out everything but your own heartbeat. When I got home, Daniel was in the shower. I placed the receipt on the kitchen counter and waited. When he came out, towel slung around his waist, his face froze. "What's this?" I asked, my voice calm. Too calm. He looked at the paper. "What? Oh, that. It's nothing. I was having lunch with a client." "Really?" I said, cutting him off. "Because your client signs receipts as Ava Collins." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. He swallowed. "It's not what you think." I laughed, though it sounded more like a sob. "Then tell me what it is. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my husband's been having lunch and God knows what else with my stepmother." He didn't answer right away. His eyes darted to the floor, then to the ceiling, then back to me, like a trapped animal searching for an exit. "Daniel," I said quietly, "tell me the truth." He exhaled, long and shaky. We didn't mean for it to happen. There it was. The sentence that ripped my world in half. The way he said we, as if they shared ownership of my heartbreak, made me sick. I whispered, "How long?" 6 months. 6 months of Sunday brunches, family dinners, laughter over coffee, all while she sat across from me, smiling like nothing was wrong. He added, weakly, "She said she'd tell you." I felt the room tilt. What? He rubbed his face. "She said she wanted to come clean after the gallery show, that you deserve to know." I couldn't move. Couldn't think. Every memory of her, of us, came rushing back like a flood. I couldn't stop. The childhood secrets, the loyalty, the promises, and now this. When I finally found the strength to speak, my voice was shaking. "Get out." He didn't argue. He just nodded, grabbed his keys, and left. I stood there, the sound of the door slamming, echoing through the house like a gunshot. That night, I drove to my mother's. The house was dark except for the porch light. Ava's car was parked outside. My hands trembled as I rang the bell. She opened the door, hair in a messy bun, wearing a silk robe like she'd just woken from a nap. Her face lit up until she saw mine. "Lena, is everything okay?" I held up the receipt. "You tell me." Her expression flickered, fear, guilt, calculation, before she smoothed it into something calm. "Where did you get that?" "From Daniel's car." "Lena, listen." "No," I said. "You listen. How long have you been sleeping with my husband?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. I took a step forward. "You were my best friend." She blinked hard, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I laughed bitterly. "That's the problem with you, Ava. You never mean to. You just do." She reached out, but I stepped back. "Why, Ava? Why him? You could have had anyone." Her face crumpled. "Because he saw me. He actually saw me." I stared at her, stunned. "What does that even mean?" "I've been invisible my whole life, Lena," she said, voice trembling. "To my father, to the world, even to you sometimes. You always had everything, the marriage, the career, your mom's pride. I was always the sidekick, the afterthought." Her words stung. "So, you slept with my husband to feel seen?" Her tears spilled over. It wasn't about revenge. It was comfort. I shook my head. "You call that comfort? You destroyed 2 families, Ava." She covered her mouth, sobbing. "Please, don't tell my mom. She'll hate me. She'll leave my dad." And that was the moment I realized she wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry she got caught. I turned to leave. "Lena, please," she whispered. "I can fix this." I looked back at her one last time. "No, Ava, you've done enough fixing for one lifetime." And then I walked away. For days after, I barely slept. My mother noticed the tension but didn't press. Daniel texted me non-stop. Apologies, explanations, pleas, until I blocked him. Ava, on the other hand, disappeared. She didn't come to Sunday dinners, didn't call, didn't even try to see me. Until she did. 3 weeks later, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, she stood there, thinner, pale, eyes rimmed red. Please, she said softly, can we talk? I almost slammed the door in her face, but something, maybe habit, maybe pity, stopped me. She stepped inside. The air between us was heavy, brittle. I ended it, she said, with Daniel. I stayed silent. I told my dad everything. He's devastated. Your mom, she doesn't know yet. I met her gaze. Good. Because when she does, she'll never forgive you. Ava nodded, tears falling. I know. I needed you to hear me out. I don't expect forgiveness. I miss you. That broke something in me. You miss me, I said quietly. You slept with my husband, Ava. You lied to me. You used my trust like currency. And now you stand here and tell me you miss me? She sobbed openly. I'm so sorry. I walked to the door and opened it. Then do the one good thing left. Leave me alone. She hesitated, then walked out. And for the first time in months, I felt the faintest flicker of peace. But it didn't last, because what I didn't know then was that Ava wasn't done. Not with me. Not yet. For a few weeks, I thought the worst was behind me. Daniel moved out for good. Ava disappeared from my life. I threw myself into work, redecorated the house, even started therapy. But pain has a strange way of echoing, like a song you'd think has ended until you realize the melody's still haunting the room. One Friday evening, I got a call from my mom. Her voice was shaky. Lena, honey, did you know Ava's been posting about you? My stomach tightened. Posting what? She's saying terrible things. That you ruined her marriage. That you tried to steal Daniel back. What? I said, standing up so fast that the chair fell behind me. Mom, that's insane. I know, she said quickly. Of course it's not true. But sweetheart, people are talking. I hung up and opened Facebook. And there it was, Ava's post. A long, self-pitying essay about betrayal, jealousy, and being stabbed in the back by someone she once loved like a daughter. And the comments. Oh, Ava, you don't deserve this. Some women just can't handle seeing others happy. She's always been controlling. You're better off without her. Each one was like a blade twisting deeper. She didn't name me directly, but everyone knew who she meant. My old classmates, my mom's friends, even people from church. I could almost hear her voice in my head, that gentle, syrupy tone she used when she wanted to play victim. I don't want to name names, but sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who want to destroy you the most. That night, I sat in front of my laptop, staring at the glowing screen, shaking with rage. I drafted a dozen replies, each one angrier than the last. But I didn't send any of them, because Ava wanted a reaction. She'd always been a master manipulator, turning guilt into sympathy, lies into half-truths, and herself into the tragic heroine of every story. So I did what she never expected. I stayed silent. At least for a while. 2 weeks later, my mom's birthday party arrived. A small gathering at my stepdad's house, the one Ava still shared with him. I almost didn't go, but Mom begged me. For me, Lena, please. So I went. When I walked in, the air felt heavy. People smiled, but I could feel their eyes flicker, whispers in every corner. And then I saw her. Ava. Looking radiant in her soft blue dress, pearls glinting under the lights, laughing like she hadn't set my life on fire. My eyes met. She froze for just a second, then smiled. That same sweet, practiced smile that used to comfort me when I was a kid. but now it felt venomous. She walked up, holding a glass of champagne. "Lena, I'm so glad you came." I stared at her. "You shouldn't be." Her smile faltered. "Can we not do this here? It's your mom's day." "Right," I said. "Wouldn't want to ruin your performance." Her jaw tightened. "You're being unfair." "Am I?" I leaned in closer, lowering my voice. "You slept with my husband, you trashed me online, and you still expect me to play nice for family photos?" She blinked rapidly, tears forming. "Lena, please." I cut her off. "Save the act. You don't get to cry anymore." People were watching now, the tension crackling like static. My mom hurried over, confused. "What's going on?" I turned to her, my voice trembling. "Ask your husband's wife what she's been posting about me." Ava gasped. "Lena, don't." "Oh, don't worry. I brought receipts." And then I did something I never imagined I'd do. I connected my phone to the living room TV. Ava's Facebook post appeared on the screen, every word of her lies filling the room. The guests fell silent. My stepdad's face went white. My mom looked between us, horrified. "Ava? Is this true? About Daniel?" Ava crumbled, her face twisted with panic. "It wasn't like that. It just happened." My mom stepped back as if struck. "Get out." What? "Get out of this house right now." Ava turned to my stepdad, pleading, but he couldn't even look at her. I stood there, heart pounding as she ran out the door in tears. And for the first time in months, no, years, I felt something close to peace. But peace didn't last long, because a week later, I got another message from Daniel. "You shouldn't have done that. You made everything worse." I stared at the screen, numb. Ava tried to hurt herself. She's in the hospital." My stomach dropped. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. Guilt crashed over me like a wave. Had I gone too far? Had my anger pushed her to this? Then another message came. "She told me she still loves me, and she blames you for everything." I felt the blood drain from my face. Ava wasn't done. Even from a hospital bed, she was still playing the victim, still twisting the story, still trying to make me the villain. That night, I sat by the window, looking out at the streetlights flickering through the rain, and realized something important, something freeing. I couldn't control what people believed. I couldn't rewrite Ava's lies, but I could reclaim my story. So I opened my laptop, created a blank document, and began to type. Every truth, every betrayal, every scar. Because if Ava wanted to make me the villain in her story, fine, I'd write my own. I don't think revenge was what I wanted at first. What I wanted was peace, silence, the kind where the past finally stops echoing. But peace doesn't come easy when your name is being whispered in half-truths and pitied sighs. Everywhere I went, people avoided eye contact. Some asked careful, loaded questions. Others just looked at me the way people do when they're afraid to pick a side. And I realized something Ava had always understood. People believe the story that's told the loudest. So I decided it was time for my voice to be louder. It started small. I wrote a long post of my own, calm, factual, no names. I told my truth. About a friend I grew up with. About how she became my stepmother. About betrayal, heartbreak, and rebuilding. It wasn't angry. It wasn't bitter. It was honest. I ended it with one line. Sometimes the people who say they love you the most are the ones who teach you what love isn't. The post went viral in our town. People knew. They didn't need names. The timeline, the details, it was all there between the lines. And then, like a dam breaking, messages poured in. From women who'd been through the same thing. From neighbors who said they'd always sensed something off about Neva. From old friends who apologized for believing her. I didn't reply to most of them. I just sat there, scrolling, watching the tide finally turn. For once, I wasn't the whisper. I was the truth. A month later, my mom invited me to a charity gala her husband's company was hosting. She said, "I want you there. People need to see that you're okay." At first, I hesitated, but then I heard Ava might be attending too. Fresh out of the hospital, newly rebranded as the Forgiven Soul. That sealed it. I went. The event was held at a downtown hotel ballroom. Chandeliers glittering, soft jazz playing, laughter echoing off marble floors. I wore a sleek black dress, my hair pinned back, my mother's silver bracelet on my wrist. When Ava walked in, heads turned. She looked fragile, pale, like she'd been through something terrible and wanted the world to know it. She saw me almost immediately. Her expression flickered. Surprise, then discomfort. But she smiled. Always the performer. "Lena," she said, softly approaching me, "you look beautiful." "Thank you," I said. "You look better." A shadow crossed her face. "I've been working on myself. Therapy, reflection." She took a breath. "I'd like to make amends." "Amends," I repeated slowly. She nodded. "We've both suffered. Maybe it's time to let go, for your mother's sake, at least." For a moment, I almost believed her. Then I saw it. The little tilt of her head, the faint smirk hidden behind compassion. The same smirk she used when she lied to my face years ago. That was when I decided this was ending tonight. During dinner, the host, my stepdad, gave a short speech about forgiveness, healing, and second chances. He gestured toward Ava, calling her his rock through dark times. I could feel my jaw clench. Rock. That was rich. Then he invited her to say a few words. Ava stood, dabbing her eyes delicately with a napkin, and began her little performance. "I've learned that life gives us storms so we can appreciate the calm, that even betrayal can teach us compassion." She looked right at me when she said that last word. And that's when I decided to stand up. "Excuse me," I said quietly, but firmly. "I'd like to add something." The room hushed. All eyes turned toward me. I walked up to the mic, steady, calm, and smiled politely. "You know, forgiveness is a beautiful thing, but it's not real unless there's truth first. And truth can be uncomfortable." Ava's face drained of color. I continued. "I've kept quiet out of respect for family, but silence only protects the liar." A murmur rippled through the crowd. I took out my phone, opened a file, and placed it on the projector screen. A simple PowerPoint presentation titled "Timeline of Betrayal." I hadn't planned to show it, but something inside me, maybe strength, maybe exhaustion, told me to finish what she started. The slides contained screenshots, messages, dates, proof. Photos of Ava and Daniel, financial records showing money moved from my mother's account to hers. Notes she'd written, manipulating stories to make me look unstable. Gas filled the room. Ava stood frozen, shaking her head. "This is out of context." No, I said calmly. This is the context. You lied to your husband, to my mother, to everyone here. And when you got caught, you played the victim. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It was steady, controlled. Years of pain sharpened into precision. Ava's mask cracked. Tears spilled, but this time, no one rushed to comfort her. The room stayed silent. Even the band had stopped playing. I turned to my mother, who sat pale and trembling, and said gently, I'm sorry you had to see it this way, but I couldn't let her rewrite my story again. Then I turned back to Ava. I forgive you, I said quietly, but I don't owe you my silence anymore. And with that, I walked off stage. Behind me, the applause started, hesitant at first, but then growing, echoing through the room. Not because of revenge, but because truth, finally, had a voice. That night, Ava left the gala early. By morning, her social media was gone. My stepdad filed for separation. And for the first time since everything began, I felt free. Not vindicated, not triumphant, just free. The past didn't own me anymore. But freedom, I soon learned, doesn't mean the story ends there. Because healing, real healing, is a whole new chapter. The morning after the gala, the sunlight felt different, softer, quieter. It poured through my kitchen window in pale streaks, landing on the coffee mug I'd bought years ago, the one that said, "Begin again." I'd kept it all this time, maybe because deep down, I hoped I'd get the chance to live up to it. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up to a storm of dread in my chest. I didn't reach for my phone expecting new lies or new rumors. I just sat there, breathing, while the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the room. It wasn't peace yet, but it was the beginning of it. That week, my stepfather called. His voice was heavy, hollow. He said he didn't know. He swore to me, Lena, I had no idea she was capable of something like this. I believed him. He sounded broken, the kind of broken that comes when your whole world rearranges overnight. He told me Ava had moved out of the house, that she left a note saying she needed time to reflect. I didn't feel anger anymore, just a strange sadness, like watching someone you used to know disappear behind fog. I said, she'll tell herself a new story. She always does. He sighed. Maybe, but at least this time, people saw the truth. Mom came by a few days later. She looked older, fragile, but lighter, as if she'd been holding her breath for years and finally exhaled. We sat at the dining table, the same one where Ava once laughed and poured wine, telling stories that were never quite true. I should have seen it, my mom whispered, eyes filling. The way she isolated you, the way she always tried to control how people saw things. I wanted to believe we were a family. I reached across the table and held her hand. I said, we were, Mom, just not the way we thought. She nodded slowly, and for the first time in a long while, we didn't need to say anything more. The silence between us wasn't painful anymore. It was peaceful. Months passed. The small town gossip faded. Ava's name became a cautionary footnote in whispered conversations. I focused on rebuilding, not my reputation, but myself. I sold the house Daniel and I had shared, bought a small, sunlit apartment closer to the city, started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. Colors began to return to my life, literally. One afternoon, while setting up a small gallery show, a woman approached me. She said, "I read your post months ago. It gave me the courage to leave a toxic marriage. I just wanted to say thank you." Her words hit deeper than I expected. I realized then that what I'd gone through, all that pain, wasn't just destruction, it was transformation. Somewhere along the way, my story stopped being about what Ava did to me and started being about what I did after. I began writing too, short essays about resilience, boundaries, and self-worth. Each one felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that Ava's manipulation had stolen. My stories found a small online audience, people who'd been betrayed by friends, family, or partners. They called themselves the menders. I love that word because that's what healing really is, not pretending it didn't break, but learning how to weave gold through the cracks. One night, about a year later, I got an unexpected message. It was from Ava. It wasn't long, just a few sentences. "Lena, I saw your art show post. I know I can never undo what I did. I've lost everyone who mattered. I just hope someday you'll believe I've changed." I stared at the message for a long time. The old me would have deleted it. The wounded me would have wanted to respond with anger. But the healed me, the one who had learned peace, simply replied, "I believe people can change. I just hope you find peace too." Then I turned off my phone, looked around my quiet apartment, and felt something close, finally, inside me. Not a door slamming shut, just a light dimming on a chapter that no longer needed to stay open. A few months later, I met someone. It wasn't some whirlwind romance. It was gentle, slow, patient. He knew my story, every messy detail, and never tried to fix me. He just listened. And one night, while we were watching the sunset from the balcony, he said, "You know, sometimes the people who betray us are just mirrors showing what we need to heal." I smiled. "I guess I should thank her then." He laughed softly. "You already did. You forgave her." Time softened everything. I learned to trust again. Not others, but myself. I learned that boundaries are not walls, but bridges you choose who to let cross. I learned that forgiveness isn't about setting the other person free. It's about freeing yourself from the story they wrote for you. And most of all, I learned that healing isn't a destination. It's a daily choice. Now, when I tell my story, I don't speak from pain. I speak from perspective. I talk about friendship, betrayal, resilience, and how sometimes the deepest wounds come from the people who once held our hearts in their hands. But I also talk about how those same wounds can become the reason we find our strength. Ava took pieces of my past, but she couldn't take my future. And that's my real revenge. I thought her betrayal would break me, but it set me free. Because sometimes losing the ones who fooled you is how you find the one who never will. Yourself. I don't hate her anymore. I just thank her for showing me that peace is louder than revenge, and healing is the sweetest kind of justice. Would you have walked away like I did? Tell me in the comments. And remember, every scar has a story, and every story can become your strength.